Well, are you going to try to kill me or just stare at me?
So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, I am so excited. I really am. My guest has been in so many wonderful shows and films on TV that I followed over quite a few decades. It's Kǎilì Hugh. Kǎilì, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun, I can tell. Look at your background.
It is a pleasure. I know. Well, it's green screen. I am limited with space, and this is the quietest place I've got to actually do my interviews. So it's sort of like my fortress of solitude. Well, no, it's in the attic, believe it or not. So it's as far away from the family as possible, where it's quiet. Okay. But every now and again, I get one of our cats coming up meowing at me. So I'll try and stop that because we've got quite a few cats. We're trying to limit it. So
you're in their space. This is their space you're invading. Yeah.
Exactly. They rule. They rule. So I'm really excited to have you on, and we're going to chat about some awesome things. First of all, on Netflix at the moment, I've seen it. And it's I have, and it's such a wonderful film. Finding Ohana is wonderful. It really is, and I can't wait for my kids to be old enough to actually sit down and watch a film all the way through, because it's awesome. If you could describe for me what the film is about and who you play in that film.
Well, I keep saying that this is kind of like Goonies, where I don't know, only the older people will understand Goonies, I suppose. But it's like Goonies, but set in Hawaii, where these kids go on a treasure hunt inside the Kuloa Mountains. And I play the mother to two of the children, the kids, who are on this adventure.
And it's just wonderful. And you mentioned the Goonies, and we have one of the stars from the Goonies that makes an appearance in the film, Data.
Yes.
I've got to say, it definitely has got a Goonies feel to it. But yeah, you're right. Hawaii, such a beautiful place, and it just changes it, because I remember watching the trailer and I thought, this seems a lot like the Goonies, but it's not. It really isn't. And the story, the message at the end, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but I'm man enough to say that I had a few tears. It's such a yeah, I did. There is a moment where I can't say. No, I'm not going to ruin it. But when someone touches the face.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I had a guest who came to the set when we were shooting those scenes, and he said, "This is like Hawaiian Game of Thrones." The costumes were epic, and the lighting, and it was just so beautifully done, and so genuine in the respect to the Hawaiian culture. We had a lot of people on set who were Hawaiian natives who spoke the language fluently, or speak the language fluently. And so, there were a couple of scenes in there where I had to speak Hawaiian, and I wanted to make sure I did it perfectly, because I am part Hawaiian, but I don't speak it. And that's like the hardest, right? Is when you are the ethnicity, you want to really make sure you don't make any mistakes. But yeah, I think this might be the first exposure for a lot of people when it comes to, seeing or hearing dialogue done in Hawaiian and Pidgin English. Because I can't personally remember a movie that was sort of, accurately depicted, using Hawaiian language or Pidgin English.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I liked about the movie, the fact that the subtitles, and it sort of teaches you a bit of Hawaiian, and the culture is absolutely gorgeous. Hawaii was one of the places I was going to go to on my honeymoon, but we ended up going to Mexico. But one day,
Hawaii.
Yeah,
you can drink water in Hawaii. I mean, a big difference.
It's definitely on my list. But the kids on the project as well was awesome. I mean, the kids are amazing in the film, and many actors say don't work with kids and animals, but they've got to be such a pleasure to work with.
These kids were amazing. You know, there were three kids out of the four that were Polynesian. The two girls are actually from Hawaii, and Alex Iono is Polynesian. He's Maori and Samoan, and they got along so well. They really became an ohana after the shoot.
Mm.
They are just such beautiful, beautiful young people, and they were such pros, and it was their first film for three of them. So yeah, and they did so great.
Wow.
They were just so professional, so charismatic, and a lot of fun to work with. I just adore them.
Oh, and you were born and raised in Hawaii. It must have been
Mhm.
nice because obviously you're currently in LA. It must be really nice to actually go back and actually film there as well.
It really was, and coincidentally, my parents, who grew up in Hawaii all their lives, had just moved to Las Vegas. So
Right.
in March, they uprooted and moved their home, to Las Vegas, and I felt like even though I don't live with them anymore, I felt like I had no more roots in Hawaii. And then this movie came along where I got to spend a couple of months there. I stayed with some friends and because I had no more home there anymore. I didn't have a free room.
Oh,
Uh, and it felt so good just to be sort of rooted and feel like even though my parents were no longer there, that Hawaii is still always going to be my home.
yeah. I mean, you know what's really nice to see films that are showing the culture. I mean, obviously we had Moana, that's
Mm.
very very popular with the young kids. Do you think there is definitely a an opportunity for filmmakers to, because Hawaiian culture has got some amazing stories.
Oh,
The history. Do you think there's
the
a lot
mythology.
there for the filmmakers to actually take advantage of and actually produce more films, based on the culture?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people don't realize how deep rooted, this culture and how different it is. Even, within Polynesia, you've got, although there's, these groups of islands in the middle of the Pacific, every single one is very specific.
Mm,
The Maoris in New Zealand have their own culture, Samoans have their own culture,
mm.
and so Hawaiians, our even though we are part of the United States and we're actually a state, and a lot of people don't even know that in the United States, but our stories are so different. Our
Mm,
history, our background, our culture is very, very different from the rest of the United States and the rest of the world. Very unique.
mm.
And
Yeah.
of course, we have all the Hawaiian mythology, and we had our own monarchy, and even the current stories in Hawaii are very different and specific than
Mm.
anything you'd get anywhere else.
I mean, do you think the culture is definitely coming back? Because from a lot of documentaries I've seen, it's like the culture's been sort of pushed, back and started to disappear because obviously with the states, taking Hawaii, it's nice to see that culture coming back. Do you think it's coming back and a lot more people are being more aware of the culture of Hawaii?
Absolutely, absolutely. I left Hawaii right after high school a long time ago, back in the 80s. And so it when I left, even though I went to an all Hawaiian school called Kamehameha, where you had to be part Hawaiian to even enter the school, um, I didn't know I knew maybe two people who were of pure Hawaiian ethnicity, and only two people who knew how to actually speak Hawaiian. But since then, there's been a resurgence of the Hawaiian culture and language, and so many of the young people have embraced it and brought it back to life. It was a culture that was nearly lost and just forgotten, but these young people were determined to learn and speak the language. Now we have Hawaiian immersion schools and so many programs, and so yeah, thanks to them we were able to rejuvenate and bring back the culture and a respect for the culture. So you're getting a lot more people involved, and I think a good example is the a lot of the protests and things that have been happening with the telescopes going up in Mauna Kea on the Big Island. People that have really organized and come together to help preserve what they consider their culture and their islands.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got to keep it alive with any culture, because I think that over the years, things are getting lost, and I'm glad to see that more Hawaiian culture is. Do you know what I've got to say? I love how you say Hawaii. How do you pronounce it properly?
It's actually Hawaii. Hawaii.
Hawaii.
So the W is
Hawaii.
like a V. Yeah, Hawaii. But because there's like a little thing, glottal stop. We call it ukina between the two eyes. So yeah, nobody else does it correctly.
Okay. Good, good. So you've starred in some really big budget movies, and obviously Netflix doing such an amazing job producing these great films. How did it compare from the big budget movies you've been on to filming Finding Ohana? But was it the same? I mean, how was it?
Well, Netflix has quite a budget these
Mm-hmm.
days. I mean,
Yeah.
they're a real studio. Um, you know, of course, this was not X-Men budget. um, but it's considered, I think, a pretty substantial. I don't know exactly what it was, but I think that also they shot a lot in Thailand. All those cave scenes and stuff with the kids were done in Thailand. So I guess that is a way to really save a lot, make your dollar go a long way. But I when you're working on these glamorous, huge studio tentpole films, you have the luxury of rehearsals and taking longer with shooting the scenes, and just it's really quite spectacular to see how much money is spent on some of these films, on things like flying in the creator of the vanilla ice blended to teach one of the assistants how to make it properly so they can make it on set. I like those kind
Wow.
of things that are just like ridiculous, those kind of
Yeah.
budgets, whereas we did not have that in Hawaii.
Who needs that? Who
We were
needs
using
that?
water.
You know what? I've often thought that these big budget movies, I think, can lose a bit. I think you don't have to spend a lot to have a great story and a great film. This is why I like these indie movies as well, because these movies that are shot on a low budget, but the story and the acting just comes through. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not about spending the money to get a good product. So
No, and especially right now with COVID,
mm,
they're really trying to restrict the amount of crew members on set, to restrict the possibility of spreading COVID. So it's you're going to see even smaller projects with smaller crews, and sometimes it's it's just more effective. I think sometimes when you have too many people, it's, you're dragging a city from location to location around with you, and it's just the logistics are crazy. With smaller productions, smaller crews, you can move a lot faster and more efficiently.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about your career. You've probably been asked this quite a bit. You've died a lot in a lot of your films and shows. And you must get so tired of being asked about this. But don't you think it's better to go out with a bang than actually just leave a show or leave a scene?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have died in so many projects that every time I get a new job, the first thing my mom asks is, "So do you die?" You know, hates watching me die. And I always said that one day I'm going to get all of my death scenes together on a reel and have it played at my funeral.
well, that would set the scene. It really would. It really would. Do you know how many times you've actually died on screen? Have you got an idea?
I don't know. I've never actually counted, but it would make a pretty substantial reel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had Xander Berkeley that played George Mason on 24, and he's actually died 43 times on screen.
Wow.
So
he must be. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's actually got a show reel on YouTube on all his death scenes, and it's about 4.5-5 minutes long.
Really?
Yeah. So what's been your favourite? Your favourite? Yeah, to go out with a bang. Yeah.
I have to say the X-Men death was pretty beautiful.
Definitely.
I mean, yeah, with the tank and the oozing adamantium and the music and then that clunk at the end.
Yeah.
It was pretty spectacular, I have to say. No blood involved.
No,
Yeah.
and that is my favourite as well. And you play Lady Deathstrike in X-Men 2, which was an awesome part. It really was. The thing that got me annoyed is that I wish that they would have explored, her changing back, because she wasn't a true villain. She's just misunderstood. She was being controlled.
That's what I said. And she's got regenerative powers, so she should be able to come back, right?
Exactly, Mrs. Wolverine. It could
Hello?
happen.
I know. I believe I tried. They were like, "You're dead."
but that was absolutely awesome. What was that like working on screen? Especially after the first movie came out and you going on set. What was that like?
On X-Men, on X2, it was awesome because they're all these brilliant actors. You've got Ian McKellen and Brian Cox and Patrick Stewart. I think Hallie had just won an Oscar. I mean, it was so surreal to just be in a room with all of these brilliant actors and watch their process. And I have to say, it's surprisingly playful and adorable, really, because really, as actors, we're just a bunch of kids playing pretend, having fun.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times we try to stay in that sort of silly creative space as actors. And so in between scenes, even though, people are screaming and yelling or killing one another, there's a lot of singing and dancing and just being really silly and I think it's part of the process for a lot of actors, to just kind of remain creative.
And did you keep anything from the set of X-Men 2?
I did. I
Did
did.
you?
I have some claws that were that I used for the rehearsal process. They're broken now. I'm looking for them, but I don't think I put them.
I love it how you're looking around your room like they'll be just left on the side. It's like, no, we'll leave them there. That's awesome.
But yeah, it was just stuff that I used in rehearsal. I didn't steal any actual props from. I'm
I,
trying to think. There was nothing really that I would have been able to steal.
I
But I
love it
do
how
have
you call it
rolls of
stealing.
plants. Sorry?
I love it how you call it stealing, not borrowing. You know, you're you're
Right.
you're you're admitting to it straight away.
Yeah, it's long-term borrowing, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, yeah. You're keeping it safe. You're keeping it safe,
Yes,
and you're looking after it.
right.
So,
Exactly. Exactly. They're not gonna miss it.
because believe it or not, these props and these costume pieces go for a lot of money now. There are collectors out there that would cut off their left arm for something from that show, from
Yeah.
that film,
I've
and
never
it's just
sold.
amazing.
Yeah, I've never sold any kind of props or anything from set, because I feel like if you're not going to keep it, if it's not going to mean something to you, then
Mm,
you probably shouldn't take it. It's really, for me, it would be something personal,
yeah,
to, yeah. Otherwise then it's really stealing, isn't it? If you're just
yeah,
going to.
and you're going to sell it, so it doesn't mean anything. You're just taking it to make more profit. So Kelly, you've been in the industry quite a while, so I presume
Yeah.
that you love the industry. What's the best thing about being in this business?
Um, there's a lot of great things about being an actor, and being in this business. Uh, it's just, like I said, it's creative and it's fun, and it's, we get to uh play and be kids and pretend to be other people for a living, and then we get to be adored for it, which is really kind of, it's still stunning to me, like, that people are willing, like, I go to comic cons, and the idea that people are willing to hand over cash for me to just put my name on something, it's still sort of baffling to me. I mean, it's not a check, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just writing my name on, like, a photo or a piece of paper, and the fact that anyone considers that valuable to me is just very, it's I mean, I'm completely honored, but I'm also still baffled by the fact that it happens, and
Mm,
that people consider it something that, that they want to keep and collect. I just that's to me, it's kind of just a strange, um I don't know, side effect or symptom of being an actor. That
mm,
whole,
mm.
like, fandom universe.
And if you could, this is going to be a deep question now. If you could change the industry as it is now, what would you change about it?
Um, I think that when I know that when I first came to Los Angeles and I started acting, there were hardly any Asian actors and hardly any Asian roles. Um, It's improving for sure. There are a
Mm,
lot more, of us out there on screen who are working and, making a difference. And this year, the last couple years in particular, have really been pivotal for a lot of Asians. I would like to see more Asian men having romantic leads.
Mm.
because I think it makes a difference for us culturally.
Yeah.
I think that without uh, these men who are, without them being in these kind of roles and being seen as strong, romantic, handsome men of value, then society doesn't give them a place.
Mm.
So I would like to see more of that for Asian men in particular.
Mm. I mean, it's shocking to think that it still happens, because I've seen copies of casting calls, and it's shocking that how particular they can be through someone's ethnic background, size, and I just think it's shocking. It really, really is. And over the years, I know that many women have spoken out and took a stand to the way that they've been treated as well in Hollywood. I mean, what's your view on your stances as a woman within the industry in being treated equal? Is the time changing? Is
It
it getting
it
better?
absolutely is. I mean, with the whole Me Too movement,
Mm.
I think that, we're getting a lot more traction. And people are recognizing the problem, that there was even a problem. And with that, I think that there are men in the industry who are, and I have to say some women too, because it's not all men, but mostly. And but I think that not just in our industry, but in every industry, um, people are a little bit more aware of what's been going on, um, not just with misogyny and things like that, but also with racism. I
Mm.
think that with the BLM protests and things, it's made people realize that they have unknowingly been part of this systemic racism
Mm.
or misogyny that has been going on for centuries.
Mm.
And so it's been sort of a really tough two couple years, I think, for so many people to have their eyes open to what's been going on that they didn't even realize that they've been a part of, or that we've been subject to in living in the United States and all over the world, really.
Mm.
I think we're going through some growing pains right now all over the world. And I think a lot
Mm.
of it has to do, the internet has great and not so great things, about
Yeah.
it. The all that false messaging that can be sent, but it also can spread awareness
Yeah.
and can band people together for positive causes as well.
And from what you've just said, let's talk a bit about fashion, because that's
Oh,
quite good actually. Because
yeah.
I will come back to a few of the questions I was going to ask before, but you have started your own fashion line, which I think the message is absolutely wonderful. If you can tell us a bit about 33 Edge.
Yes. So I don't know if it's so much fashion because at the moment it's just t-shirts with graphics on it. Um, Fashion would actually imply that I'm like sewing and
What,
like
you're not?
doing production. But really it was something that started with the during the BLM protests while we were all in quarantine. Um, and even before that, I just I've been so bothered by the division that we've all been experiencing, not just here in the United States, but all
Mm.
over the world. It seems like everything has been polarized. There's conservative and liberal. It's just I feel like there has had to be more people like myself who wanted more unity and more coming together and just a little bit more kindness and understanding and openness. So I created 33 Edge with the idea of bringing equality and unity and sort of promoting, those kind of ideas. So the t-shirts, I have one on right here. It says unity.
Yay!
Wait, I can't center it. There we go. So things that say unity, humanity, kindness, and they're written in a gradient of skin tones. So it represents diversity, and I even made a shirt that said American on the front, because so many Asians during the pandemic in America were getting, or not even just America, really all over the world, were getting accused of bringing the virus to,
Yeah.
to Western countries, and
Mm.
being told to go back to wherever they came from. So I made a shirt that said American with the different skin tones, the gradient of skin tones,
Mm.
just as a statement saying that Americans come in a variety of colors, and just because you look Asian doesn't mean you come from China and you're,
Yeah. Yeah.
not a virus. So yeah, I mean, I guess people are going to think what they're going to think, and but I just hope that there are more of us who are willing to just put out a more positive message, to sort of help uh maybe tip the scales, so that people just are, they realize that even though there are differences, that really, we're all just humans, and we're all just looking for the same thing. We're all just wanting to be safe, and have food on our table, and find a little bit of kindness, and neighbor, and know your neighbors,
Mm.
just bring back, humanity, and
Yeah.
that kind of, messaging. I just feel like a lot of that has been lost lately.
Mm. Mm. And you've even got a lovely range dedicated to your dog as well, which I think is really
Oh,
sweet.
yes. So during COVID, I'm gonna try not to cry. During COVID, I lost my dog in September, who I had for 17 and a half years. She was
Wow.
about a year old when I got her. So she was like 18 and a half when she finally passed. So there is a shirt that I created that just says rescue, just simply rescue across the front, dedicated to Mushu, and with the proceeds going to help animal shelters here in Los Angeles, where I got her. I got her from a shelter, and
Oh.
she ended up being the best dog that anyone could ever hope for.
Oh, sorry for
Mm.
your loss. And I know dogs can be, part of your family. They're like a
Oh,
loved one, like a human. They really, really are, and they're great listeners. I've got to say. Um, so
yeah,
what?
she
So
was pretty
what's?
deaf towards the end.
Yeah, oh. So what's next then for the brand? Have you got anything else, planned for 33 Edge? And why is it called 33 Edge? Or is that going to be a? Am I going
You
to
know,
look silly when
it
you
was
answer it?
actually a name that I had chosen over 10 years ago when I was trying to do an athletic line. And the number 33 is something just very personal for me, because spiritually, it's a very strong number, and it's the number 33 actually appears in all kinds of religions, and specifically in Hawaiian. There's a an island that's in the uh, northern part of the Hawaiian chain called Moku Manamana, where the Hawaiians would paddle out to do their ceremonies. And out there, there are 33 ki'is, which are like tiki gods, and he'eaus, which are like areas of prayer that are set up on the island. And there's I've never been, but I've been told that during the solstice, the sun, when it shines a certain way into one of the pits that are on the island, the Hawaiian symbol for 33 appears.
Wow.
So I just felt like there was such magic in
Mm.
that number, that I felt like it was a really good sort of, way to honor it. And a lot of the religions that, you know it's sort of all encompassing for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. And do your t-shirts and lovely garments ship worldwide, or is it just for the
They
US?
do. I've actually gotten a lot of orders from the UK and
Oh, wow.
Australia. I've shipped as far as Egypt even.
Wow. So the next challenge is on your Instagram is to try and get pictures of people wearing, the t-shirts around the world. That would be awesome.
Yes, I actually have a gallery page on
Oh, wow.
33edge.com, of people in the community, and just people who have posted and sent photos of them in the t-shirts, who are supporting equality and unity and humanity and kindness. It's really wonderful.
That is absolutely amazing. And I'll make sure that I'll order a few. Do you do kiddie size or is it just adults?
It's just adults for now. I've gotta make smaller graphics for the kiddies.
Well, they can wear them as pajamas, I suppose.
Right.
So going back to your action films and your action past, you do a lot of martial arts in a lot of your shows. What's your
Mhm.
martial arts background? With training.
Well, I have a black belt in karate, and the style of karate that I learned is called Kanzen Budokai, which is based on Shotokan. My instructor is Persian, and he was, I think, like 17-time national champion in his day in
Wow.
Iran. And has just the most incredible story. But yeah, I used to do like competition and things. It was very competition based in this
Mm.
style, because he was also a coach for the junior Olympic team and stuff like that. But once I got into like the more advanced belts, I had to stop because they don't allow you to wear a face covering, a face mask. So in your competition during like fighting, and I thought, this needs to be
Yeah.
protected.
Pays the bills.
Yeah,
Oh,
all
because
forms.
because one of my favorite shows was Martial Law.
Oh,
Because you've actually worked with quite a few well-known martial artists.
right.
Sammo
Yes.
Hung was like, I grew up watching Jackie Chan and Sammo in Meals on Wheels, Police Story, and I absolutely love those movies. And it's well known that he didn't talk a lot because of obviously his English. How was he to
Right.
work with? And did you pick up any tips from him while shooting the show?
Samo, I think, was one of the first Asians really to have his own series in the
Yeah.
United States. It's really, it's quite sad because it's still not happening much. But yeah, he was so amazing to work with. He was Jackie Chan's like big brother growing up. They
Yeah.
grew up together in the Peking Opera, and just watching him move. I mean, he was a big guy, but he was fearless.
Mm.
He would do things like cartwheeling off the top of a car, or jumping feet first through a car window into a seat. Just his work ethic was tremendous. And so, yes, even though he did not speak the language very well and had difficult time with memorizing dialogue and things, he would wear this earpiece, that would feed him lines
Wow.
before he would have to say them. But it was turned up so loud that if you were doing a scene with him, you could always hear it. I can't blame him. I would not be able to memorize dialogue, on a weekly basis the way he did in a foreign language. I mean, that's
Yeah.
impossible. His work ethic was something else. I mean, he did all of the stunts and, all of the acting, of course, was him, and just this guy was tremendous. He was such an inspiration.
Definitely a childhood idol for me, him and Jackie Chan. And you've worked with Jet Li as well, which is awesome. Um,
Yes. Yes, I got to fight with both of them. It
yeah.
really, I mean, when you work with people like that are just so good at what they do, it's like butter. I mean, fighting with them is so fluid and beautiful. It's like having a great tango partner,
Mm,
somebody who really knows what they're doing. They just take the lead.
yeah. And do you prefer, you know, obviously in your early career you did a lot of action. Do you prefer now to do action or to do sort of straight acting? So
Now
no need for
that I'm
kicking people's
old,
backsides.
now that I'm old, I definitely
You're not
lean more
old. You're not old.
action to my stunt girls. They can always perform so much better than me. And the long-term effects of having to do stunts, are the injuries last so much longer now. Um I am actually working on a film in a couple of weeks, that is all drama. I was really worried. I didn't want to have to do a film, uh, during COVID. I'm a big chicken. I've hardly left my house. I don't even go grocery shopping or eat at restaurants. I'm doing a lot of online shopping, so I am doing my part in helping the economy. I can tell you that much.
Good.
But there was this film that was offered, that I just couldn't say no to. It's straight drama. I play a woman who has been diagnosed with breast cancer, who goes on a quest to find the daughter that she gave up for adoption 23 years before, to let her know that she could have the breast cancer gene. And so, yeah, this is the kind of roles that are, that I never got
Mm,
offered in the past. And to be able to be trusted with something like this, such an important um, role in such an important subject. It's really an honor to be able to do these
mm.
days.
And obviously the nature of that film is quite serious as well to many others. I mean, my mum had breast cancer, and
Mine too.
it's unfortunately she was in remission for 6 years, and the cancer's come back now, and it's terminal.
Oh,
But
God.
she's fighting strong. She's getting treatment, but for something like that, what sort of research, what sort of I'm quite intrigued in what you're going to do in the way to prepare for that role.
There is quite a lot of research that I've been doing. The role requires me to go through a 6-month journey, with a woman who doesn't want to get treatment.
Mm,
I've been interviewing doctors. I just had a phone conversation with someone in the breast cancer association here. I've spoken to my own doctor. doing a lot of reading, a lot of I've watched documentaries,
Mm.
spoken to girlfriends who have gone through the process. Of course, I haven't really gotten to speak to anyone who is choosing not to get treated.
Mm.
Um, but getting into that mindset of why somebody would choose not getting treated, I think is also important.
Mm.
um and I really want to do this role justice. And surprisingly, somebody else who's going to be in the film is Shannon Doherty, who has been very public about
Yeah.
her breast cancer battle.
Wow.
So yeah, she of course didn't want to get on a project that wasn't going to do it justice. And so I really want to make sure that I do it right. And really pay respect to the women and men and
Mm.
families who have suffered from breast cancer.
You see, it's quite nice to hear as well the amount of research and effort actors like yourself put into these roles, because many just watch you on screen and just think that you come on screen and you do a fantastic job, but all the work that you put in before these roles,
Oh,
and all the effort is incredible.
it's my favorite part,
Is it?
really. Feel like the research and getting to know who the character is and sort of piecing their lives together, making sense of what you're seeing on the script, on the pages, and filling in the blanks with all of this backstory,
Mm.
understanding the why these people choose, what they do on the pages, comes with so much other backstory. And this character in particular goes through such a journey through her life. I mean, it's just incredible that I'm having to research foster care in the United States, and giving an adoption, and understanding what that's like, giving up a baby for adoption, and
Mm.
all of the psychology that goes with it. And through this process, I'm also finding how flawed our foster care system is in the United States.
Mm.
And I've been driven to, take up collections, because I've also been interviewing people who work with foster kids, and people who are working with young adults who are aging out of foster care. Because what
Mm.
happens is, so many times, at 18, a lot of these young adults, they grow up in foster care with very little tools for life, and they're just kind of kicked out and put out on their own to
Mm.
figure it out at the age of 18, with no guidance, very little tools. And so yeah, I've been drawn to doing work now with some foster care. So I've actually taken up collections, and having them donated to some group homes for some of these young adults who are aging out. And
Yeah.
it's been very difficult for them during this pandemic, because they can't get jobs. It's hard for them to stay home and stay
Mm.
inside and stay safe. I mean, it's a difficult age for anyone, much less people who have no guidance or tools to get through life.
And don't you just
So
wish you could just get them all up together and look after
yeah,
them? Because being a parent, myself, and seeing these kids in foster care without parents, and it's just heartbreaking. It really, really is. And we talk
mm,
about, obviously, earlier on we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and my role as a parent, I think I've got an amazing responsibility. And I'm
mm,
saying it's amazing, because I've got the opportunity to bring my kids up. We're not seeing race. We're not seeing, Do you know what I mean? Sort of not to be racist and to love everyone. And it's
Uh-huh.
just a great opportunity, and I cannot
Yeah.
wait. And I cannot wait to see that project you've got coming out. It sounds like it's going to definitely send a really good message. And I know it's a difficult subject, but I think that it's good to have those sort of things on screen, for
Yes.
people that may not be able to talk about it, to see, your journey and the character's journey. So I'm
I
sure
just
it'll
hope I
be
can
an
do that.
absolute wonderful project. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you'll do fantastic. So talking about conventions, obviously they're not happening. With COVID, there's a lot of
No.
people stuck at home. They can't do anything. Have you got any virtual conventions coming up? Have you done any virtual conventions?
I don't have any coming up, but I have done quite a few, and
Hmm.
I have to say they're different, but they're good in a way that because they're online and virtual, we're able to reach a wider audience, more international
Hmm.
audience. So I've been able to connect with fans all over the world, from all over Europe and Asia, and anybody who just has internet is able
Hmm.
to tune in and get video chats with you one on one. It's so much more fun when you have that kind of reach,
Yeah.
and it's I love meeting fans from all over the world.
And are you on Cameo? Because Cameo is
I
becoming a
am
trend.
now. I only just started on Cameo, and it's been really fun, I have to say. My latest Cameo request was from a guy who does karate, and I guess there was a guy in his class who was, talking about, you know, women and putting women down, and there was a black belt, a female black belt in his class that, called him onto the mat, and she just laid him out. So this guy
Excellent.
wants me to do like a talk, a cameo, making fun of this guy and just talking smack about him. I think that's not going to be too hard.
That is going to be awesome. Excellent. And then, obviously, we're all stressing about COVID and we're all at home trying to relax. How do you relax? What is your ideal day to unwind? What do you do to unwind and relax?
I've taken up a lot of hobbies, other than the t-shirts, of course. Um, I have been growing a lot of stuff. I don't even have I just live in a condo, so I don't even have a yard or anything, but I've got a lot more potted plants and sprouting seeds and microgreens, and all the things that you couldn't do because like I was always traveling, right? I was always on the road, and I could barely keep my plants outside alive. But now that I've been spending every single day at home, I'm making kombucha and sprouting seeds and growing microgreens and herbs, and I have like an herb garden in my guest shower because nobody's coming over to
Wow.
visit. I know. I've got like the
Wow.
lights and everything. I mean, it's been really fun just being able to do all of these things that I would not have had time to do or the commitment to be able to do.
You know what? I could just imagine the end of COVID, someone coming round to your place and they're
Oh,
thinking,
it's
my
adorable.
word. Yeah. Yeah, it's covered. It's covered in greenery and
And
everything like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
my living room right now is a t-shirt warehouse. I am a one-woman show.
Well, fingers crossed. You do really, really well with it because I think it's a great message. And
Thank
before I leave you to your day, the rest of your morning, and we bid farewell. What sort of advice would you give anyone at the moment? Your fans out there that are struggling with the day-to-day life of dealing with this pandemic. Because it's getting everyone down. I mean, what sort of
It
advice
really
would
is.
you give them?
Well, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're so close. we can all see it with these vaccines that are coming out. That I feel like this is a chance for us to really come together as a community and show how much we care for one another. Even if you don't believe in the vaccines, wear a mask.
Mm.
Wear a mask. Um, be courteous, be kind to one another, go out and help with the food banks or volunteer, make yourself feel valuable and like part of the community. Because I think when we are stuck at home and we are focused on ourselves, I think that's when it's so easy for us to get depressed and anxious and upset with the world and what's going on, especially if you're online and
Mm.
like watching all of these
Yeah.
crazy videos. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Go out and really be a part of your community, because this is such a great time to show it and be active and get to know your neighbors.
Yeah.
Watch out for one another.
And we're all in it together. We've all got to support each other and find that love. And hopefully, at the end of this COVID pandemic, we'll have a new appreciation to, for things, because we're all stuck inside. We all can't go out as such, but. We need to support each other, and you're right, and be kind. I think we need to respect each other and support. So, Kelly, thank you so much for your time. It's been great chatting to you, and it's definitely a tick off my bucket list. And I've got to say, I'm looking forward to everything that you do in the future. And I'll definitely be ordering a T-shirt and plugging that as much as I can, because it's a great message.
Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this interview. I really, really appreciate being on this show. Thank you.